Hi, I'm Warren. I'm the curator, and I'm here with Alyssa. Go ahead, turn the camera around so they can see your mug.
Hi.
And we're doing some training on the check-in, check-out process. I've got my handy-dandy forms for check-in and check-out, and we write down the procedure for every system because every system has quirks. So what is our check-in and check-out process? It's just like in a hospital, you have doctors on multiple shifts. So in this case, the doctor is the aquarist, and the patient is the animals in the life support system. So like just like in a hospital, the patient is hooked up to a life support system. Our fish and our animals are hooked up to a filtration system, our life support system. So in the hospital, when the, and you just ask fire questions, Alyssa's going to be talking on the camera and asking things, or laughing like that.
Right.
Which is awesome. And so in a hospital, you have multiple shifts. And so all these different doctors that don't work together, don't get to see each other, are all managing the same patient who is changing. Their status is changing and hopefully improving, right? Because they're in the hospital. And they have got to communicate. But the check-in and check-out process, that's why there's a tank chart. Behind there is a clipboard. Every patient has a clipboard, you know, at the end of the bed. The doctor walks in and says, "All right, Miss Boucher, how are you today?" You know, like that. Every tank has a tank chart, and we're always writing on it. It's really, really important. We're making observations. Our volunteers write on it. Our interns write on it. And the tricky part we're figuring out is how to make sure this video works. I know the audio is not very good because of the sound. We get a mic, and Alyssa's learning how to keep me in the frame while I'm crazy all over the place. So back to the hospital analogy. So you have all these different doctors on different shifts. Like Alyssa works on a different shift as Forrest, and they all take care of the same patient.
Right.
So they're all both have to write as much as possible on the tank chart. But what's the unspoken danger is human error. So both Alyssa and Forrest, or even Warren, will come in and mess with things, screw with things, take things apart, turn things on, off, recalibrate them.
Don't communicate.
And manipulate them, and something might happen when I was working on it and I didn't tell Forrest, and he doesn't know and he assumes something and bad things can happen. Mm-hmm. So what we do to mitigate that is we have a check-in, check-out process. And that's where we go around and we just, basically we're making sure everything's okay, and then we're going to discover anything that's changed. And one way could be, I could just look and I could be like, oh, our scallops look really unhappy or thin, which they have been lately, by the way.
Right.
And I could also read on the tank chart to see what's happened. And if Alyssa and Forrest are really amazing, they're doing a really good job, and their team is doing a good job, there'd be all this stuff written on the tank chart. Even if not a whole lot had happened. So the more I would write, the better. So I go through and I'll check water levels. Is the water level where it's supposed to be? Is it too high? That might mean that this strainer is clogged with hair or schmutz. If the water level is too low, maybe it means the valve is closed, or the pump isn't working, or the circuit breaker tripped. Is the water even cold? This tank runs at like 56 degrees. Does it feel like, I have to see my actual hand in, I'm a human temperature thermometer. Does it feel like 6 degrees, or whatever temperature it runs at? And then I have to check the controller. Is it reading in the right range? Is it behaving properly? And if it's reading high, the chiller should be on, running, humming. The fan should be blowing. And on and on and on and on down the list. We're checking essentially 3 categories. We're checking aesthetics. So when people look in the exhibit, does it look nice? Does it look like a presentable exhibit? Is there a dead animal in the corner? Or is the glass dirty? Or does something look unpresentable? That's aesthetics. Or is there water on the floor? And then there's biological. So did an animal die? Or is there an animal not acting properly, or acting unhealthy, or is it not eating? Or is there a new algae that's cropped up that's a problem? Or did maybe hierarchies change with fish and all of a sudden they're fighting and they didn't used to fight, or now they're mating and they didn't used to mate and that causes problems. So that's a biological side. Those are some examples. Or maybe a disease cropped up. So it's our chance to notice it. This is all part of the check-in, check-out process. And then, so there's aesthetics, biological, the last one is mechanical.
Right, under the tanks.
So it could mean there's a leak, or are all the machines working, or is something broken, or is the pump overheating, or like the temperature we were talking about, or is the fluidized reactor fluidizing, is the water moving, things like that. So we have a system, it's all written out, and we have to physically go through this. It's great for training, and the reason we have it all written down is we cannot afford to miss something. Because if we miss something, then, gee whiz, I hope the monitoring system catches it and calls us. And if it's not, or it doesn't work, then animals could die, equipment could be
Floods.
broken, property could be damaged, a flood, like that. So we have this list to go through it because we don't want to depend on our memories. Because Alyssa or me or Forrest could have Forrest was having an off day yesterday. He was like feeling kind of like his energy was low. I think he's kind of sick. My parents might be visiting in town, and mine might be all the way up here in my head, not even thinking about work, and I could be screw up. And this helps me save my butt, just like it would save a doctor in the hospital when they're doing their rounds, and help mitigate against human error. So we do that when we come into work. When else do we do it, Alyssa?
When we leave,
And when else do we do it?
during the day,
During the day. When during the day do we do a check-in, check-out?
every time you do something to a tank,
Yeah.
and just checking during the day anyways to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah, so when we manipulate something, when we take a tank apart, right?
Or
Or
when we take a filter apart, or when you touch anything, basically.
or when you turn it off, or a water change.
Timers, stuff like that.
So it's like
Anything.
that.
Everything you do to a tank.
All right. So I think we're going to stop it there. We're trying to keep these videos under 5 minutes. That's our check-in, check-out process. We're probably at like 8 minutes.
7.
7, okay. We'll get better at it.
Close.
So if you haven't already subscribed to this channel, find the subscribe button and subscribe. You get an automatic email every time we post a new video, and you'll be up to speed on what's happening here at the Aquarium.